So my name's Larry Roberts. This is my daughter Cassidy. My kids are all grown up, so I get to just dive into this kind of stuff. I've been interested in survival or primitive skills for as long as I can remember. And now that the kids are grown up, it gives me a lot of time to be able to just go out and practice this stuff. Like I mentioned before, I've got a YouTube channel. It's just Larry Roberts. And it's just fun to explore this stuff and share it with people. Anybody ever heard of dual survival?
Yes.
Okay. Dave Canterbury was on it at the very beginning. I've taken 2 classes of his, a basics and an advanced class. The advanced class, they didn't give you any food or water. You had to process all your own water. For 3 days, I think I had they gave us a glass of B8 juice, and then my partner caught a frog, so we split a frog. But anyway, let's just get started on it. Has anybody tried to do a flint and steel fire before?
A little bit.
Okay.
I can make sparks.
Okay, good, good. Well, that's half the battle right there. With a flint and steel fire, what you're doing is you have a piece of properly treated steel, usually a high carbon steel, and a lot of people think that the flint is what's making the spark. It's not. What you're doing is you're shaving part of the steel off, and it's hitting the oxygen and creating a spark. Okay? With the flint and steel fire, you need charred materials. So in order to get this to work, you have to have already had a fire before. Okay, so whether you made that fire, I know I think it was last year, I did a bow drill class here, rubbing 2 sticks together to make a fire. Then you could make your char, and then like a belt buckle, or if you have the proper knife, you could find a piece of flint or chert. Technically, flint only comes from England. The black stuff is true flint. The stuff that, I think this is a piece of Ohio chert. So basically when they say flint, it's really chert, or if a lot of the purists are going to say, no, it's not flint, it's chert. But anyway, you get a rock that's hard, you strike it against your steel and make sparks, and it will go onto your charred material and create an ember, and then you can take that ember and blow it into flame with a tinder bundle. We'll go through the tinder bundle, the proper tinder bundle, and the technique of doing a flint and steel fire. And then I've got some tins so we can make our own char. Nowadays, people seem to do a lot of char cloth. Back in the olden days, cloth was, they did do some with cloth, but cloth was very an expensive item. So they would take natural materials like punk wood or different types of fungus. Anything that's kind of soft, a dead weed, the inner pith of a dead weed, will char up for you. And normally what they did is they would throw the sparks into their tin and then add the tinder bundle to it and then create their fire that way. Whereas most times, if you watch it on YouTube or whatever, you'll have a piece of char cloth and you'll take that char cloth and put it into your tinder bundle. Did anybody bring any flint and steel kits? Okay. Well, I'm just gonna, I've got some here and I can pass them around. Keep in mind, they made cutting tools out of this stuff for millions of years, or whatever, thousands of years. Just be careful, it's like holding a knife, okay? I've never had a piece break off and hit me in the eye or anything, but just keep, it's a fragile rock. There's 2 different techniques to doing it. Basically, you hold your rock, and then you take your piece of your steel striker and hit it that way. That bounces the sparks up on top of your rock, and you would have your piece of char cloth here with your thumb. Otherwise, if you have your tin or your piece of char cloth down, you can take your rock, and some people switch hands, just whatever's comfortable for you. And you take your spark, or you take your rock, and aim their sparks down, okay? So I'm going to...
take one and hit the other. Which would you rather do? Take the flint, hit the steel, or steel hit the flint?
Which way works better?
Yeah.
For me, I like to hold the char cloth on top and aim it on top. Now, if you're using, I'm going to show you the other method too. If you're using natural materials, then you have to rain the sparks down on the natural materials. Like I'll have a tin of punk wood that I've charred. That's the method that I use for that. So let me grab a piece of char cloth here real quick and kind of just demonstrate. To make char cloth, you need 100% natural or 100% cotton material. 100% natural, linens I've heard will work. I haven't used linen before, true linen. but it's got to be 100% cotton. If you have any type of polyester or any type of anything like that, it will not work. So I'll hold the char cloth just like this, close to the edge of the flint, or yeah, close to the edge of the flint. Not cooperating. Oh yeah, I've already got it under. And then you would put that into a tinder bundle and blow it into flame. Has anybody ever blown a tinder bundle into flame with an ember? You have? What did you use for your ember?
Used char cloth before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Oh, okay. Right on. If any of you are having trouble doing this after this class and you need work on blowing an ember into flame, get a piece of cattail that hasn't exploded yet, but it's all dead, and you can light that with a match or your fire or whatever, and it will hold an ember for you, and you can just break that off and use that for practice. Or, you know, you could use a piece of charcoal or whatever. But, all right, let me just hand some of this stuff out. And you guys can at least practice the technique. Actually, probably an easier way is for you folks just to come up here, and if I don't have enough, then we're just going to have to share. But there's a bucket of flint, and I've got several strikers here, and if you just want to grab them and then go back and sit down, we'll kind of see how you guys are working on it. Okay, so what I see right off the bat is most people, it's surprising how much force it takes to get a spark. So you're going to have to whack it, and you got to find a nice, you don't want too fragile of edge, but you do want a decent edge, you know. And you gotta whack it on there. You're cutting part of that metal off. There, you got it. There you go. Natural material is going to be punk wood that's been charred, plus regular char cloth is in there as well. That way you can kind of see what the end product, what we're trying to get. Okay, so this is something that's completely different. Okay, this will strike a spark about 3,000 degrees, and this will get that kind of stuff if you do it right on fire. This flint, I think the spark is only about 800 degrees, so that's why you need a charred material. For the most part, you need a charred material. There are a couple of things that will work and that people have used for a long time, and we're fortunate in, well, this is, you know, close enough to Minnesota. I live in Minnesota, but we're fortunate in Minnesota to have so many things available to us that will actually work naturally. And it's by so many things, really. There's only two that I've found. But on the birch tree, there grows a horse hoof fungus. And if we see one, I'll show you. I had brought one. I'll dig it out in just a second. But that, if you saw it up correctly, will actually take a spark from your flint and steel fire. One of the few things that will do it. There's another thing that grows on birch. I didn't bring it with me. It's called chaga. We have a lot of chaga in our area, and the farther north you go, the more you're going to find it. Chaga is, if you do some research on chaga, I mean, that's like the holy grail of plants and antioxidants, and I mean, it's really quite the medicinal plant, but it works really good for fire starting as well. That, if you take that up and saw it up, and you can use a magnifying glass to get it to ember, or, you know, your flint and steel. Like I said, one of the few things that will actually work. There's another thing here too. This is either triple-aught or quadruple-aught steel wool. This will take a spark from your flint and steel. Just kind of fluff it up. Be real careful when you're messing with this with this steel wool. It's basically molten metal. That'll get a fire started real good. So did everybody have a chance to look at the punk wood, the charred material and everything? Okay, so that's what we're looking for when we're done. Basically, when you're making charred material, you're starving it of oxygen. You're putting it in a fire, and you get your tin, and you're starving it of oxygen, and all the gases escape, and what you're left with is the char.
This grows on a rotting birch tree, right?
It doesn't have to be rotting. I've seen them on live trees.
Oh,
Yep. It's funny, the birch tree actually is pretty right up there with my top tree. There's another fungus that grows on it that's called the birch polypore, and if any of you guys are knife people like I am, you can use that fungus to strop your knife with, just like how like the barbers strop with the leather strop. I've taken it and stropped my knife with it. You can get a razor edge from it. And then once again, like that chaga. So with our tinder bundle, I didn't bring enough for everybody, but I'm hoping that their woods out there might have some stuff in it. Grasses are good. Bark is better because a bark will extend your coal a lot better than grass, and it will burn for longer. The inner bark of the aspen tree, or any bark that is stringy and kind of holds together, cedar bark works real good. Okay, so you're wanting to create a bird's nest, which is literally, you want it to look like a bird's nest. This is close enough for me. The outside part can be less fine materials, but the inner part, I'm going to pass this around too. The inner part needs to be fluffed up, good, stringy, fibrous materials. I'm just going to take this and work it.
And that's what is that now?
This, I think, is the inner bark of the aspen tree. But cedar will work. Birch bark will work, but you have to understand, birch bark is very flammable due to the oils that are inside of it. It's just like sap-infused pine trees. They'll burn really good, but it takes a little bit to get them to combust because it has all that oil in there. It's kind of suffocating your ember. So I don't use birch bark, only at the very end. So I mean, I don't think I really need to pass it around. I just worked it and worked it and worked it, With grass, it's kind of nice because you can hold on to it. You can use a piece of birch bark around this to hold your tinder bundle, but you got to be careful with that because it will block the oxygen out of it. When I get this going, I'm going to have a little ember and I'm going to blow gently at first. I don't want to go to town, because you'll see that ember dissipates pretty quickly. We'll use a big enough piece of char cloth, it shouldn't be a problem. But you want to blow gently until this stuff starts to smolder and gets involved in the process. And then once the smoke starts billowing out the back, you can blow harder and harder, and then it will combust into a flame. Ideally, your tinder bundle, I'm trying to save some for folks, but ideally your tinder bundle would be at least twice as big. I mean, you want it decent size. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to grab some birch bark to help it at the end, once I get it on fire. One thing too, and I'm sure everybody probably knows this, but no matter what campground I go to, someone's already peeled a birch tree. I have no idea why they do that, but there's no need to. I mean, it falls, the stuff on the ground lasts for years and years and years, and it's got a lot of oils in it. There's no reason to strip a birch tree. If there's a tiny little bit of bark already peeled, sure, you can take your knife and harvest that little piece, but there's no reason to peel it off a tree like I see everybody doing. It kills me. Kills the tree. I mean, I've used a dime-sized piece before. If you do your tinder bundle correctly, you don't need a real huge piece. And you don't have to race. This is actually a pretty good sized piece. You don't have to race or anything. I mean, the ember is gonna last for a little bit. And the beauty of char cloth is it's not gonna go out. Unless I starve it of oxygen, it's not going out. So I want to try and cup this without smothering it. Just that easy. Living up north like we do, basically in any environment, fire is one of the most important skills you can master. With fire, I can burn out a container, I can scare off predators, I can do bug control, I can purify my water, because with that burned out container I can take rocks and heat them up and stone boil, because boiling water will purify your water. I don't care, as long as it doesn't have pesticides in it. I've drinking right out of, Mr. Beaver was swimming right next to me, and if you boil your water, it kills everything. So with fire, I can purify water, it's an amazing resource. And for us, if you guys have ever, you guys know, we live up north here, it's 20 below out. There's very few things that are going to keep you alive like a fire if you're stuck out in the woods. If you have the right gear and stuff like that, sure, but a fire is definitely welcome when it's that cold. So I'm going to feed this fire and we'll get some char cloth making. Overdo char cloth. So long as you do it correctly, you can't really overdo it. And what we want to do is wait for all the smoke to go away, and then give it even just a tiny bit more time, and then we'll pull our tins off the fire and keep the lids closed, let it totally cool down, and then we'll open it up and see what we've got. Some people, they will tell you that you need to punch a hole in your tin. Like the most common thing is these Altoid tins. These are real common in my circle of friends or whatever. You don't need to punch a hole in this tin, first of all, because it's not waterproof. If it's not waterproof, it's not airtight. Does that make sense? Water is thicker than air, so the air is going to escape. Also, on the back of these Altoid tins, they've got these little hinges. There's your hole right there. So the only way you could really overdo your char cloth is if you add too much oxygen to it, if you put too big a hole in it. Your tin from the fire, they'll put like a little toothpick or something in there to smother it out, because you're trying to make sure there's, you don't want it to ember back up inside your tin. I have noticed also with your cotton material, if there are certain dye colors work better than others. Black works good, or white works good. Some of the funky colors out there make it kind of a hard char cloth. And as far as packing it into your tin, it really doesn't matter how much or how little material you put into your tin. It's just how long it's going to take to char at the end. I like to just do, about as much as what you got there, and just shove it in your tin and let her cook. See how the smoke's starting to come out the back and everywhere? That's where you start blowing harder. Blow hard. And you gotta kind of cup it together. There you go. Cup it. There you go. You're getting there. Cool. Keep going. Sometimes the smoke will billow at your face. Just turn away to take a breath, or you're going to cough all over it instead. There you go. Good job, man. Right on. All right, well, Cassidy's going to watch the fire if you guys want to walk with me, and we'll try to find some tinder material. Is that if you have the correct knife, you can actually, a lot of people did this back in the day with their knives. If you have a high carbon steel knife instead of a stainless one, throw sparks just like a striker. Beats the heck out of your knife, but...
Hey, that's what they're there for.
Yep. I'm going to start working on arrowheads and stuff. But if you look at the rock, this is a piece I picked up from Missouri, so I can tell it's not going to be the greatest. It's already pre-fractured. It's got a lot of fractures in it. This one's better. But if you look at the rock and you see, I call these little breaks or chips, facets. I call them facets. I'm not sure what the proper name for it is. But if you're looking at it, you can usually tell which way it's going to break. Like if I hit this piece here, it has the potential of knocking off a nice good sized chunk. If I hit it on the edge right here, it should create another facet right there and sharpen this edge. So that just, I just hit that right there.
Oh yeah.
That's a razor sharp edge right there. Harder on it now. Now that the smoke's going everywhere, start blowing on it. Keep blowing on it. If it gets hot, then just keep blowing, keep blowing. There you go, you got it. Nice job.
Yay.
Nice job.
I
Excellent.
had to have a bigger char cloth.
Bigger piece of char cloth. With these pine needles, don't be afraid to use a big hunk of char cloth. There's nothing, I mean, you know, you're never going to run out of old cotton clothes. You're never going to run out of them. And like I said, denim will hold the ember a lot longer, but you know, don't be afraid of using extra material. All right, I'm going to say your guys' tins are probably cool by now. And let's take a look at all your char cloth. I want to check it out and see if it made it right.
There, see? That's the material around it. You can actually pick that up now. Pick it up higher.
Put out your fingers.
There you go.
There we go.
Nice. Nice job.
There we go.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
It goes fast.
And you guys are doing it with less than optimal material too. Pine needles are a little difficult to get started right at first, but if you use a big enough piece of char cloth, it works pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice job. Nothing to this stuff.
You have to put them on with the char cloth. You
Depends.
probably can. I need one.
Depends on how much you practice and how much you do it. And it depends on how much, good job, nice job. Depends on how much time you've spent in that. Or it looks like bear scat, and it's semi-hard, but it's not as hard as a burl. That will kill a birch tree. Chaga kills the birch tree. Don't feel bad about harvesting it. Don't destroy the tree, but it's a hard substance in there. You have to harvest it, you have to like dig your knife into it or take an axe or a hatchet or something. But it's going to kill the tree anyway. So,
Is it this color on the outside?
no, on the outside it's black, and then on the inside it's corky orange like that.
The very center.
The very center.
Yeah.
The black cork, or the black hard part of it is they say has the best nutrients in it, or antioxidants, however you want to say it, for tea. You take a piece about that size and you simmer it on the stove for a couple of hours, and it makes a tea, and it's supposed to be really, really good for you, really healthy. They say, and I'm going to butcher his name, but I think it's Otzi, the Iceman. When he was discovered, I don't know how many years ago he was discovered, but he had some of that with him. And that stuff it's easier than horse hoof. If you saw that up into a powder, you can get that to ember up with a piece of flint and steel. Some people burn it for like an incense, kinda, and some people are, you know, pretty crazy about this stuff. They think, you know, they take it very spiritually, kind of. And I guess I'm not there. I kind of think it's neat, but it's, you know, it's just a fungus to me. But if you get this on fire, you're not going to put this out unless you dump it in water. There's no way this is going to go out. I've done a bow drill with this stuff, so I had a big chunk of it, and I used my spindle and my bow, and was able to get a bow drill with this. I'm just going to barely light this on fire. It works real good with solar as well. I cut myself every once in a while, but I don't burn myself. too much. We're not talking minor burns, are we? Because minor burns every once in a while, yeah. But not like, I've never burned myself bad enough to get a blister or anything like that.
So just that short amount of big time, you got
And it's going to sit
an
there in
ember
ember.
going.
Minutes or so, we can just let it sit here, but let's watch this. I'm going to try to get rid of it. And if I had a bigger piece, you would hear, every once in a while you'll see it. But this is fat wood. Basically it's just sapped impregnated pine. They sell it at Walmart actually, and it says right on it, fat wood. They harvest it down south a lot. This stuff, if you take the back of your knife, if you've got a nice sharp edge to the back of your knife, you can create what's called a fuzz stick. And this stuff's actually quite hard. It's not smelling too much, but you see that's just the very beginnings of a fuzz stick. That stuff is amazing for starting a fire. You can take that piece and process it down to little tiny twigs and make a fuzz stick with it and have a fire in a matter of minutes. It's super hard. It'll gum up your saw blade, it'll gum up your knife blade, whatever, but it's an amazing resource.
Is it a certain kind of tree? Is that
It's
why?
a pine tree, but I'm not sure which kind. I found one piece in my area, and it was from a downed tree, and that stuff is still there. It won't rot, it won't do anything, and it's a pain to harvest. I mean, I've taken a hammer and chisel. No, it's pine. It's pine. It's just, what'll happen is, like, especially down south, they'll have big trees that have just died, you know, trees die, and the sap just, I'm not sure if it just continues to pump through the roots and impregnates that tree, but it's amazing stuff. Oh, this stuff just smells amazing. I love it. Guys from down south, I'm on Facebook and I belong to a lot of different groups and stuff, and folks from down south will trade us, that live up here with birch bark, will trade us fat wood and you send them birch bark. It's kind of a neat deal. See how it's just bubbling?
It's pitch burn.
It's all the pitch burning.
Yeah.
But it's a dry, they say it'll burn wet, but it's dry. This piece is dry, and it's just gonna sit here and burn. It's just like a match. With the pine trees too, if you come across a branch that is coming right off the tree, obviously, but it's dead, you can saw, you know, you're harvesting a piece of dead wood so it doesn't hurt the tree, and right at the very edge of that branch, you'll find fat wood. It's not this good a quality, but it's, for our area, that's where you find it. So right next to where it's growing into the tree. Does anybody have any questions? Any?
Like a knothole wood.
I'm sorry?
Knot is really hard.
What's that?
A knothole is really hard. You
A
get
knot,
the same
that's
thing?
exactly the same thing.
Sound lumber, it's a knothole.
Yep, a knothole will have the sap in it, yep, exactly. I actually saw a couple pieces when we first came in that looked like it had a lot of sap and stuff on it. Trying to think of anything else I could tell you guys. There's, everybody's familiar with the balsam fir, right? The tree that's got all the little blisters all over it. You take your cedar bark. You can harvest cedar bark off a live tree and it doesn't hurt it. You take the back of your knife and you scrape and the fibers will come off. It kind of discolors it and kind of makes it look a little bit ugly, but so long as you don't go too deep, you won't kill the tree. You take that cedar bark. Cedar bark is an amazing, what they call coal extender. It's just exactly what it sounds like. It will extend your coal for a long time. But if you take that cedar bark, it doesn't necessarily take a spark from a ferro rod very well, but if you hold it up next to that balsam fir and you pop one of them blisters and get that sap in there, it's just like gasoline. Is there anything you guys want to try? It didn't quite take the 2 hours that I thought it was going to take, but we had to.
We're good.
If you add some of this stuff to your barbecue and you cook food over it, is it gonna taste like tar?
Fat wood will. You wouldn't want to, anything that burns with a black smoke, just like birch bark or this, you would not want to cook over it. You could get your fire started. I've started my charcoal grill with it because it'll dissipate after a while. But It would make your food not
The
taste very
cedar
good.
bark shavings?
Well, that stuff will
wouldn't
burn up
last.
by the time you're making a fire. Yeah, I mean, by the time you're cooking, it'll all burn up. And I actually have a friend. I've got friends from all over the world on Facebook, but this guy's from Sweden, and he cooks fish all the time on pine wood. As long as it's not. I mean, this is. I'm pretty sure. You know, this is fine. This doesn't have. It's, you know, it's some sort of sappy wood. I don't know what it is exactly, but what did you say it was? Yeah. So you could cook off of that. It doesn't have a lot of sap or anything on it. You can cook off of that, no problem. There's a lot of other stuff I could tell you, but it's all not exactly related to flint and steel. So, I mean, I think that kind of wraps it up. If you guys have any questions or
Thank you very much.
you bet,
That's great.
you bet. Feel free to.
What was your YouTube?
Larry Roberts. Yep.
Make sure I
Yep. If you just want to dump the flint back in.